Today, we're going to dig into a topic that can bring a billion-dollar project to a screeching halt. I'm talking about construction contamination. What do you actually do when the ground right under your feet is hiding a pretty nasty secret? So let's set the scene. Imagine this. Your project is running like clockwork, perfectly on schedule. The foundations are being dug, and then everything just stops. The crews found something weird. And believe me, what you do in the next few hours is absolutely critical. So let's talk about that moment. A totally routine dig has just turned into a critical incident. This is the point of discovery, right? Uncertainty is sky high, and following the right protocol, well, it's everything. Now, you might be thinking this means finding some dramatic, glowing barrel of goo. But honestly, it's usually way more subtle than that. Workers might just notice some discolored soil or a weird chemical smell they can't quite place. Or maybe they just dig up some old buried industrial debris. These are the first red flags that you've just stumbled upon a much, much bigger problem. Okay, so a potential contaminant has been found. Now, every single action you take from this point forward is part of an official high-stakes process that you absolutely cannot afford to get wrong. This 5-step process you see here, this is the universal playbook for what to do. First things first, stop all work, immediately. This isn't just about safety, it's about containing the problem before it gets any worse. Next, you notify everybody, your project manager, the EPA, you name it. This is a legal requirement, and it's what kicks off the official response. Then, you bring in the experts to assess the situation, because you can't fix a problem you don't fully understand. Step 4, you create that formal remediation plan. And finally, after all the work is done, you have to validate it. You need final reports that give you legal proof that the site is safe again. I just mentioned a plan in that last step, and here it is. The Remediation Action Plan, or RAP for short. You can think of this as the master document, the absolute Bible for the cleanup. And let me be clear, this is not a suggestion. It's a legally binding strategy that spells out the problem, how big it is, and the precise, approved method for dealing with it. Without an approved RAP, your project is at a total standstill, period. Okay, so the site is secured, and the authorities have been notified. The next big question is, what exactly have we dug up? Identifying the contaminant is absolutely key to creating a remediation action plan that actually works. So you're generally going to run into two main categories of contamination. On the one hand, you've got historical issues. Think of stuff left behind from past land use, like an old factory or a gas station that wasn't decommissioned properly. Then, on the other hand, you've got accidental contamination, a spill or a leak that happens during your project. Knowing which one you're dealing with is critical, because it changes everything, from who's legally responsible to the entire strategy you'll use for cleanup. So what kind of stuff are we actually talking about here? Well, it could be anything from hazardous materials like asbestos and lead paint in old buildings to nasty heavy metals like arsenic in the soil. You could also find hydrocarbons, things from spilled fuel or oil, or even just construction waste that was improperly buried. And every single one of these requires a very specific, highly regulated approach to handle it safely. Once the problem's been identified, the next phase is all about documentation. It might not be the most exciting part, but building this paper trail is your official record. It's your proof of compliance, and it's your legal shield if any disputes come up later. In this situation, a comprehensive damage assessment report is your absolute best friend. Seriously, it has to include everything: maps, lab data, photos, consultant reports. All of it paints a crystal clear picture of the problem. But it also includes the really crucial legal paperwork, like waste disposal certificates to prove you got rid of it legally, and a detailed health and safety plan to show you're protecting your team. And while that cleanup is actually happening, the rules are ironclad. Hazardous waste has to be in sealed, properly labeled containers. Any high-risk work, like asbestos removal, requires a specific, pre-approved work plan. And you'll be using physical barriers and other engineering controls to make sure workers aren't exposed. There is zero room for cutting corners here. Every single action has to align perfectly with state and national guidelines. So we've walked through the right way to handle this kind of crisis. But what happens if you get it wrong? Well, the consequences are severe, and they go way beyond just the cost of the cleanup. I mean, just listen to this. The source material makes it painfully clear. Failing to report contamination can set off a whole cascade of problems. You're looking at massive project delays, which are incredibly expensive. You're facing legal liability that could literally bankrupt your company, and you'll be on the hook for fines and remediation costs that could completely dwarf your original budget.
To put it simply, getting it wrong is just not an option.
So now you know the playbook for dealing with construction contamination. But it kind of raises a bigger question, doesn't it? As we keep building and developing our cities, what other hidden legacies are we digging up? And what's our responsibility to the past and to the future when we do?